So what we have are the main countries on the map that we are going to be looking at during history. And hopefully, I know your sound isn't working, so hopefully you... That's okay, thank you. I like your innovativeness. So if we have a look at what countries these actually are, we have Russia. Hopefully you could get Russia. Then we have Italy, France, Britain, and Germany. And they are the main countries that our history looks at during the first year. The second year, we can look at the same countries, or we can move over to Asia and look at China. I will ask students what they'd like to do, because some might prefer to have a change, but it is easier to stick with the same countries, I have to admit. So if we have a look at paper 1 and 2 and what we're actually doing. So paper 1 and 2 are both based on European options. So there are several options. When you open the exam paper, you'll just answer the questions on the modern Europe. And it runs from 1750 to 1921. So we have France, 1774 to 1814. We then have the Industrial Revolution in Britain. Then liberalism and nationalism in Germany. Please note, it is not World War II. It is going right back to 1815. So it's when nationalism and liberalism first started and the revolutions around that. And then we have the Russian Revolution. And we look at 1905 and the 1917 revolution, which was massive. And then we move on to see how things changed for 1921 and if it actually got any better. I don't know what country you're in, if any of those are relevant to you or not. Right. So here we go. This is going to be quite difficult. I want you to try and work out which word, which of the words goes with which country. So the black is liberalism, and I don't know why it hasn't appeared on there, because it's appeared on my little one down here. Let me just go back a minute. No, how weird. So this one was France. Anyway, you know the countries we just looked at: France, Germany, Britain, Russia. What I would like to do is try and match which words you think go with which country. It's hard. It'll be a lot of guesswork, but that's fine. See if you can match them up. I'll give you about 4 minutes. It's very strange. The little names are down here. I don't know why they haven't appeared on this one. Mystery. Have you done them already? No. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. I love the fact you hold it up for me. Let's have a look at this one. I'm glad that you're not fazed by my lack of skills for some reason and the fact you can't speak. Right, here we go. So France should have been red. I don't know where it's vanished because it's on my little one down the bottom. But anyway, so absolution, Robespierre, which I probably said wrong, so sorry if you're French, and Enlightenment. They are all in relation to France. We then have the green, and we have British industrialisation as the green. So we've got technology, migration, and turnpikes. Now, I think this is probably the easiest one to have done. And then liberalism, Germany, and nationalism. We had Volksgeist and Bund, Bismarck, which I think you could have guessed just by the sound of the words. Then we have unification and Napoleon. Now, Napoleon's underlined because he comes under 3 of the different sections. So he comes under France, he comes under Russia, surprisingly, and he comes under Germany. So we like Napoleon. He appears everywhere. And if you look at the reading week list, I have put a Napoleon film on there for you to watch. It's one of those epic films, but it's quite good because it's relevant to 3 topics. We've then got the blue, which is Russia, and we've got the Cheka. Now, the Cheka were the secret guard that came to be known as the KGB, the Tsar, and Bolshevism. So we've got a political party down the bottom as well. Oh, look, they've appeared now. How annoying is that? Oh, I should have clicked the button some more. Right, I'm giving you difficult things. I want to know what event you think A, B, and C show. So what events in history related to the topics do you think they show? Hey, go you, full marks. Well done. That's awesome. Yeah, so I've got First World War, so well done. The Holocaust and Cold War. I would have been a bit upset if you hadn't got the Holocaust, because that's quite a traditional picture. But the Cold War was difficult, so you did well there, because you've got America and Russia, but a lot of people don't know what the symbols actually are on the bear. So you did well. Yeah, the Cold War, perfect. So we studied those 3 areas. And then we move on to paper 3. So paper 3, as you can see, has 3 topics. And we have the origins of the First World War, the Holocaust, and the origins and development of the Cold War. Paper 1 and paper 3 are source papers. So you get a little picture or a little bit of text, and you have to analyse it and bring in your own knowledge to answer a question on it. The other 2 papers, 2 and 4, are essay style questions. Right, so here we go. What do we know about the Holocaust? You've got to choose one of the answers. So you've got 1, you've got a choice of 3 things. 2, you've got a choice of 3, and 3, you've got a choice of 3. So if you just do them sort of A, B, and C, have a go, 1, 2, and 3. I'm loving the fact your camera picks this up. Okay, so you're not sure about number 2. That's all right. Let's have a look. Number 2 is actually really difficult. So if we have a look at them, we have another set here for you, 4, 5, and 6. I think there's 9 if I remember correctly. Okay, last 3, unless I suddenly find another one that I hadn't realised. So we've got what is genocide, what was the final solution, and then about the Russians. Awesome, right. Oh, look, Miss is like a disaster area when it comes to these things. Right. I'm like a disaster area, lovely. So which words hatred of the Jews is anti-Semitism? Then what percentage? This one's quite hard because it's actually 6% of the population were Jewish. That's a lot. And then it was Jews were seen as Gegengrass, which is not human. Not that you can tell it from these random marks, but anyway, hopefully it'll get better with the next one. Hey, this one fits. Look, so when did Hitler come to power? 1933. What was Hitler to blame? The Germany's defeat in the First World War. So a lot of people think that it was starting the war, but he actually blames them for the fact Germany was beaten because he thinks they didn't fight, they were lazy, they didn't contribute. So what was the purpose of the Nuremberg Law? It was to deprive Jewish people of their civil rights. Because they were seen as Grägengas, so they were seen as not being human, they shouldn't be entitled to any civil rights. And that's what started them wearing the star. We then have genocide. Hopefully you got that one, the attempt to kill a whole ethnic group, because that's pretty extreme. The final solution was to exterminate all the Jewish population in Europe. So it wasn't just in Germany or Italy, or as Germany took over countries, they wanted it to be the whole of Europe. Jewish people don't belong here. So they've got a very prejudiced, discriminatory and racist view. We've then got the Russians advanced in the winter, and what happened to the Jewish prisoners? They were forced to march to concentration camps. So you can imagine being Jewish in this horrible condition and you hear somebody's invading Germany. It's natural that you're going to think, oh yes, I'm going to get liberated. But actually, they all got marched miles and miles across the country and put into even worse conditions. So it's, the expectation and the reality was massively different for them. Right, have a look at the pictures linked to the countries. This one might be easier. Depends how good you are on uniforms and things. Oh, you've even got the names as well as the countries. Okay. So yes, Mussolini in Italy. Ping, brilliant. That one's the hardest one, I think, because you've got a hint behind the next one with the little bits. That's Stalin in Russia. And I have to say, I would have been disappointed if you hadn't managed to get the third one. So brilliant, you got all of them. I'm really impressed because the first one normally confuses people and then they go into panic mode and you end up with weird answers for all of them. So brilliant, well done. Right, so paper 4 then. I've put the European option because most people prefer this because it sticks with what we've already been doing. But like I said, I am flexible to change it to China if you'd like to. But we have the interwar years. So we have Mussolini's Italy, Stalin's Russia, which follows on nicely because we obviously had Tsar Nicholas, then we had Lenin, and then we have Stalin. So that helps with a lot of exam questions. Then we've got Hitler's Germany. And we've got Britain. So what happened after the Industrial Revolution? So really, it's quite recent history. I know it might sound ancient to you, but it's recent compared to the Romans and the medieval stuff that you do. Right, fill in the gaps. Let's see what you know about Mussolini. I'm very impressed that you identified him. She might be brilliant at this. So I'd like you to write out the paragraph and then you've got the words on the right hand side. Lovely. See if you can pop them into the gaps. Each word only appears once. I won't ask you to hold this up because I probably won't be able to read it, but if you just let me know when you're ready. Have you finished? Kind of. Okay, I'll give you a couple more seconds to just think about it. Okay, let's have a look. So Mussolini, not many people know much about him. So we've got an October 1922. Benito Mussolini, that's a great name. I love that name. He became Prime Minister of Italy, and then in 1925, with the backing of his fascist party, he made himself dictator, which is quite amusing. I've just decided I'm going to rule everything. Yes, you'll do what I say. And he ruled Italy for the next 20 years. I think that says a lot about his self-confidence and the kind of personality that he just decided, I think I'll just be in charge. And then we've got Mussolini claimed to have invented fascism. That's quite controversial because he took over the fascist party. So if you take something over, it surely means it existed before you took it over. But anyway, he's saying he invented it. And he was the first ruler of a single party fascist state during the period between the two world wars. In addition, his early ideas and political programs and his party organization and methods were all influences on Adolf Hitler. So you can now see the link between the three people. So we've got Mussolini, who's got some Stalinism in the fascism, but then he's influencing Hitler. So they're all interlinked with their political regimes. Where did I get up to? I start talking. In the early years, it was the formation of the Nazi Party, and Germany became not only Italy's admirer, but Italy then became Germany's admirer. So it's some mutual love going on there between the two countries. Oh gosh, Mrs. pressing random buttons again. Okay, so paper 1 and paper 3, as I said, the source papers. You get a little source to analyse. The basic breakdown of what we're looking for would be this. So the author, who wrote it, filmed it, or drew it, depending on if it's a cartoon or what it is. Who was it actually created for? Now that will be up to you to make that decision. And as long as you can justify it, then that's fine. And what was the purpose of it? Then we've got when was it created? So the date. Primary or secondary? So I won't ask you because obviously you can't talk, but primary data means that it's first hand. It was collected at the time by the person. And then secondary, it was either collected later or it was in a newspaper or something. Somebody had taken a diary and written an article on it. So they'd interpreted it, which is why it becomes secondary. We've got the medium. So did they want a cartoon? Because if you choose a cartoon, you're probably taking the mick out of somebody, where if you choose to write a formal letter, it's more likely to be not so politically biased. It'll still be semi-biased. Usefulness. So can we do anything? Can we learn about the event from this source, or is it just a made up load of rubbish of somebody's view? bias? Is it the author's opinion? Is it the political opinion? Who's it actually written to? Because sometimes people will change their opinions depending on their audience, which is why it's important to know the audience. So if McDonald's sponsored you to go and do a test on which burger comes from which company is the best, you're not really likely to say Burger King because McDonald's are paying you. But when the report comes out, it would have Aiken thinks that Burger King have the best burgers. And unless you actually look at the small print, you wouldn't know who was funding it. So it's quite important. Reliability. So are there any other sources that relate to it, that are similar to it, or indeed different? In paper 1, you will get 3 or 4 different sources, and you'll get a 15-mark question that asks you to compare to, and then a 25-mark question that asks you to compare all of the sources. So that's when you would start to use the word reliability, one compared to the other. I think this one's more reliable because it's backed up by another one or whatever. Narrative. So sometimes one source can be 20 years later than the source before, so you need to check, because if they're not written at the same time, things change. So your view of something, even 10 minutes after it's happened, is different to your view 20 years after it's happened. So that's important. So here we go with the exam paper. It's very tiny, but hopefully you can see it because I wanted it all on one slide. So you've got paper 1, document questions, which is the scenario. It's only an hour and 15 minutes and it's 40 marks. So you answer one question, and one of those questions, it has 2 parts, which is the 15 and the 25, and the other one is the 40. Paper 2 is where you get specific questions on an era. So you will choose 2 eras. So paper 1, for example, might be on industrialization of Britain, which means paper 2 will have Russia on it, Italy and Germany. So you would then choose 2 of those to answer questions on. We will know a year in advance which of the topics is the document question and which is the essay questions. So there's no need to worry about that. They do tell us in plenty of time. So you'll answer both questions, and as you can see, it's 60 marks. So they're 30-mark essays, but you have 1 hour, 45 minutes, which is quite a long time. It's nearly an hour per essay. Paper 3, again, is an interpretation question. So this is very similar to paper. Oh, to paper. I've just denied somebody entry. Oh my goodness, sorry. So paper 3. Paper 3 is a an exam question like the first one. So you've got interpretations of a stimulus and different sources. So it's 40 marks and you've got 1 question and you have to answer all parts of that question. Then we've got paper 4, which is an in-depth. So it looks at depth of 2 questions, again, 2 essay questions, and you just have to pop in which 2 you would like to do. Hello, Asma. Sorry, I accidentally denied you. It was an accident. We just went over the exam paper. So these are an example then of 2 sources that you might get. So you've got source C and source D. Hopefully you can see that. What I would like you to do is spend 4 minutes, come up with what is similar and what is different between the 2 sources. So 4 minutes, what looks similar, what looks different. Asma, because there's only Aiken and I, we've got through this quite quickly, so we've only really got one bit left, but it is recorded, so you can pick it up on that. Lovely. Okie doke. So if we start off, we're going to use the chat box. Are you okay with the chat box? I'm going to assume this is a no as you're looking for paper to hold up. Oh, that's okay. Don't worry. We can work on that one. That's fine. So similarities. One of the basic ones you should notice is the dates. They're written in the same year. And then we've got a letter compared with an interview. But they are both by Bismarck. So again, we can say the opinion's reliable because it's backed up. One of them is to a British journalist and one is to a Conservative deputy. So straight away, you should have noticed that the political audience would have changed the tone of it. So he's put in the letter, unhappily, I believe a war with France before long. But then he's really toned it differently in the bottom one because he's put, there is nothing in our attitude or to annoy or alarm France. Well, in the first one, he's convinced they're going to go to war because they can never get on. And in the second one, he's downplaying it. So that's why you have to think about the audience. You could argue it's reliable because both of them show there is a tension with France to some description. And then it talks about the country's interests. And we've got only a country's most vital interest justify embarking on war. Only its honour, not to be confused with its prestige. Where down the bottom, they're saying about being gentlemen, being neighbours and getting on with each other. So you've got some conflict or differences in terms of what they're saying. Now, one of the things that you would be doing in an exam is you would need to make sure you referred to it as source C and source D, and that you use some quotes, just little couple of words from each of them to support your answer. And that is how you would end up getting full marks. So as you can see, it's quite simple in terms of what it wants, particularly if you use the grid and go through the different points. I'm now going to lose my voice as well. That'd be a bit of a problem, won't it? So we've only got one slide left because there's only you. So this would be a specimen answer for that. So you should be able to compare this to what you've written. So we've got the sources are similar. So what's nice here is that they've added a connective and really made it obvious the sources are similar. And I'm sure you can write that way without any problems. In that any war would be caused by France. In source C, so there we've got it referred to as source C. Bismarck believes that French vanity hurt by our victories will drive her in that direction. So we've got a lovely little quote here. So that's what went well with that. And this shows that France would start a war because of her own concerns about a united Germany's strength. Now we've then got in source D. Now they should have put another conjuncture in here, because if you had put in contrast or similarly, then you would have got discussion marks. But instead they've just made a statement, so that's knowledge. So try and put conjunctures, connectives between sentences, because it adds to your marks. So in source D, it says there is nothing in our attitude to annoy or alarm France. Again, this shows that Bismarck's attitude is that the France might decide to start a war because of her own concerns, but it would not be suitably provoked by him. Now we know in the letter, though, he was saying it's a case of honour, in which case it wouldn't just be by France. Both sources portray Bismarck as wanting to avoid war. So we've got a nice similarity again. And in source C, Bismarck from personal ambition and national vanity. So this is agreed in source D. So again, you can see virtually every sentence is making a discussion. And when Bismarck says, and we've got another nice little quote, and then again, we've got in both sources, Bismarck's attitude is that it would be France seeking war. So I need to be a little bit careful because they've repeated this point already. And then we've got some balance. So wherever you give similarities, you need to give the same amount of negatives or differences. So however, at the end of source D, now this is important because we're not only looking at the whole of the source, we're looking at different sections of the source as well. So we're breaking it down. And you might have noticed this in your notes. So at the end of source D, the difference is that Bismarck's attitude to France changes to be more aggressive. And again, we've got a little quote about being respected. And this is very different to the attitude in C, where he stresses the need for calm. So we're looking at the tone and the emotion behind what's being said. So in source C, in March, he has a pacifist attitude, but by September, Bismarck seems more likely to consider war. So he could also have improved that by putting in conclusion in source C, because in the essay questions of any description, you need to have an explicit conclusion in order to get up to the top level. Right, that's it for me. Have you got any questions or anything, or are you okay? Perfect. In that case, I will hopefully see you next year. Have a very good day. Bye.